I think a lot of people are living in a state of internal friction and stress because they're trying to control it and they don't even know how to get to the root of it. So I really want to point this out, that if you are carrying a lot of anger and friction and this is happening for you, look at what you might be feeling guilty about and what in your life you might want to see change.
Do you want to experience the full potential of your sexual energy, deep intimacy in your relationship, and how it feels like to truly be in your power as a man? Can you hear the world's desperate calling for conscious, heart-centered men to rise to the occasion? Then welcome to the Heart of a King podcast, where you will find the clarity, guidance, and tools that will empower you to do what it truly takes to live a life of freedom, fulfillment, and bliss. Welcome to today's episode. I'm so happy to announce to you our interview guests for this episode. It's Rose and Sean. We already had a very popular episode with them about generational trauma and how plant medicine can help evolve relationships. Today, back with some more amazing content and an update from what they've been up to this past year. So welcome back on the podcast.
That's so fun. It's so wonderful to be here.
Maybe you want to share a bit what you've been up to since we last spoke, because it's been a while. You've been a lot in the jungle and working with medicine, and now you have your own retreats going. So curious to hear a few updates. What some of the most exciting things?
Thank you. Yes, that was an amazing recap. There's been a lot going on this year. This last year, 2022, was a very expansive year, where a lot of our projects we've been working on were able to wrap up and move into the next stage of blossoming and kind of taking flight. We're very, very excited. This is a huge year for us. 2023 is already showing so much growth and beautiful opportunities. It's been incredible. Oh my gosh. We spoke right before we went to Peru.
Exactly.
For our internship. That was a very pivotal time. I felt a little chaotic on that one because I was like, there is so much going through my mind. I think we were leaving the next day or something.
Yeah, something like
a couple
that.
Of days later. And our baby ended up not being able to come with us. It was a huge learning experience. It was very challenging in a lot of ways too. As a young family, it was a big step, a big leap for us and big investment, and was incredible. Completely transformed our lives. We were in Tarapoto, Peru, up in the jungle, Amazon. That deep, it was 45-minute motorcycle ride we were kind of up this mountain. You were able to just experience the pure consciousness of Mother Earth without the apathetic, synthetic interruptions that we experience in the United States and in other parts of the world. So It was electrifying. Such high life force flowing through the entire jungle. There's so many different creatures and species and beings all throughout the jungle. There's so much noise, so many bugs and animals talking, and you can just hear the trees talking and the wind and the rain. It rains every single day, pretty much. When it's really, really sunny in the afternoon or mid-afternoon, there's going to be a huge rainstorm in the later afternoon. Learning things like that with the tribe and the locals and building a deeper relationship and understanding of the roots of where these medicines come from was so sacred and special. Truly an honor. I would say a big opportunity for us that we took really deeply to our hearts, to be able to have the opportunity to just spend time with them for that long. We were there for about a month, and we did the full cleanse and dieta and worked with multiple different medicines. I can go into depth more into that later if you want to, but to kind of fast forward, we were able to experience really personal transformations in ourselves. And I was able to dissolve a lot of my shadow perceptions, my limited perceptions of myself and judgments of myself and shame and guilt and just these deeply rooted emotions in my identity and my heart space and how I express myself and share myself with the world and receive others. I felt there was a lot of movement. There was this one medicine I worked with when we were doing our dieta, our week fast, that was called Bubisana. And It was specifically to heal and open up the heart chakra.
Mm.
And I had it morning and night every day. And we only had rice, basically plain rice, no salt, no sugar or anything for a week. And that was my spirit, the medicine I was syncing up with. And it was one of the most like beautiful, incredible moments and experiences I have ever had, being able to hold that much heart space for myself, my consciousness, to release and digest and process these limitations and blocks and pains that I'd carried, and to also call into the universe and like kind of telepathically communicate with different people in my life and send love to them and say, you know, pono pono with them, like, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I spent time with the medicine, meditating every day, just surrounded by the consciousness of the jungle, healing those anchors and heart connections, and was able to really shift into my authentic voice and my more just genuine state of being that was pure and just me, and not having to like overcompensate in any way or like shut myself down. I felt like I opened up a lot in my throat chakra too. Really did change the course of the next year. I feel like because of those shifts, I was able to, Sean and I both were able to adjust ourselves and pivot and redirect our energy and our focus in the ways that we needed to process what we needed to over the next year and step into our greater potential. And we were able to finish the app this last year. We officially launched it a year ago. That was like a beta test version. So this one now is like this refined, evolved, more finished version. We're going to obviously keep evolving it because that's our nature.
Sure.
That combined with the retreats, holding retreats, like that preparation, the app is really like a funnel. It's like a womb for you to like have some organized information and support for preparing your body and your mind and your emotions and your consciousness to go work with plant medicine and go into deeper states of processing in ceremony or in retreats. And
for integration as well, right? So people are not just dropped off after having a ceremony, but they actually get to integrate, have tools and have some feedback, right?
Exactly. Because when you're in ceremony, like I said, you're processing these really deep things and you're moving a lot of emotion and shifting your perspectives a lot. So when you go back into your normal state of being and your life, you're going to have to make adjustments in how you've set your life up.
Yeah.
You're going to want to do things a little bit differently and also want to have different, maybe evolve some of your relationship energy dynamics, like the energy exchange you have in some of your relationships, integrating those new behaviors of habits that you really want to experience instead of old addictions or old mindsets that have been hurting you. So to really integrate that, there's certain things you do need to do, like meditation and moving your body, connecting to your body, nourishing your body, reading and journaling, and these different things that sometimes can be a little bit difficult to know how to do. We've tried to make it very simple for people to know where to direct their focus. Journal prompts and like the meditations and stuff are just really, I feel, helpful for anyone that's really wanting to make a shift and aligning more with their self.
Yeah, because that's when the whole shifts you experience during plant medicine ceremony or ceremony in general, that's when it becomes real, when it gets integrated in your everyday life. What you shared also reminded me a lot about my journey to Peru. I've been there, I think, 2020 in Iquitos, Peru. To be there in this pure environment, it was also like 45 minutes away from Iquitos, deep in the jungle. Like you're intimate with Mother Earth. You're really there and you're not distracted. And also to be with the tribe. It has something really sacred, something really grounding to get to know how these people live, how connected to the earth they are.
Yeah. I feel like different areas are different, of course, like different cities and places have different cultures. But I felt like everyone that I met and connected with was very authentic, just very raw and just themselves, much more alive, like present with their emotions and that energy of presence. But it was hard for me that I didn't speak Spanish. Sean was fluent in Spanish. And so he was able to really get into conversation and like talk about things. And I had to go through this really big process of experiencing being mute for like periods of time, you know, when he couldn't translate for me or like no one could, and not being able to share or put my input in or not knowing what's going on. I'm just like watching everyone's energy and everyone's body language and kind of touching little things here and there. By the end, I felt pretty close to everyone, but it was definitely a process of feeling like that block of like communication. And I think that's a thing that a lot of people experience. Like that's a block for a lot of people from expanding, like keeping them from expanding, is kind of that fear of jumping into other cultures and worlds and not knowing what the heck's going on. And like
Yeah.
not being able to speak a language that's being spoken in that area.
But in the end, it worked out for you, right? So maybe there was something in it for you. You get to be more the observer, right?
Yes.
It's really,
Yes, I
has something.
loved that. I was much more meditative and present in a observant way rather than like really actively thinking and wanting to share what I'm saying, like getting ready to talk. That's one thing that we really want to help shift. Like that was a big part of our experience this last year, is wanting to help create like a safe path for people to feel like they can go out to these different places, like go out to Peru and work with Kinti and work with plant medicine. We actually have been like partnering with him now. So our website is New Earth Integration and we're our own entity. But then Kinti, we're working on building him a website too, but we have a page for him on our website with like all of his videos and information and stuff. And we'll be adding a donation button there too. And he is just incredible. He's Peruvian. He's been doing the work for over 15 years. And just has been dedicating his whole life to serving the medicine and making it possible for people to experience that consciousness of that plant medicine and work through the things that their body needs to heal through with all different plant medicines of the Amazon jungle, not just ayahuasca. He's been building the chakra there and it's incredible. It's where we stayed. I will be posting more videos of it. I did post a little bit just recently, but it's come a long way. They've been building it for a last while and it's almost done. So our goal is to get like at least 1,000 subscribers on our app as soon as we can, so we can fund that project more and help them build it up so we can make the retreats more affordable for people. Because a lot of what the money, when people invest in a retreat to go work with Kinti out in Peru, all that money is going to building the chakra and to, paying the workers and paying everyone that's doing it. Like there's these ants this big that if they bite you, it's like a gunshot bullet. And they're in the mud, but like knee deep in this mud, like building these buildings with this mud texture stuff and just like working their hearts out like every single day. These people are incredible and they like just deserve to have like a flood of abundance and support into their community and into the retreat centers. So okay, I think I'm just going to trade him. So this is Zion.
Hello, Zion. Good to see you. I think it's really important that the authentic shamans and people that offer the medicine and the work, that they get supported, that people get to find out about them and get to connect them. Because there's not just the great, authentic, heart-centered, real good shamans. It's like there's all kinds of stuff. So that's good that people have discernment about whether to do that with just the random guy across the corner. So it's great that you guys, for example, found this tribe, worked with them and get to know them really closely. It's great that you're doing that because that's crucial for people to have a good experience.
I really feel seen by everything that you said as well. So I appreciate that. We worked really hard on trying to make sure that our energy goes back to the people that we're working with. Yeah. So that does very specifically mean the tribes and the people that taught us. We're really grateful. We understand our ancestors also. We're very connected to this medicine and that no one specifically owns it. And so that gives us an angle of where we're grateful for the tribes, but also we want other people who haven't had the opportunity that will be blessed as much as we have been because they've been disconnected from it for so long to have that opportunity. And so it's nice to be able to be a voice for them because a lot of times they just have so much knowledge, but they don't work with computers or technology as much.
Kinti is the shaman, the master shaman, and he's not like familiar at all with working with the technologies and stuff. So he's really relying on us to handle that for him and help him spread the word among the internet because he's known among people for a really long time, like has a lot of community across the world where he's worked. But there's this merging and integration that's needing to happen now in the new earth, us coming together and bringing our knowledge, our skills together and serving one another and finding ways to serve each other in more efficient ways.
I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to talk about what we're doing. We've been working really hard and the people that we've been working with have been working, for a long time, even longer than we have in this kind of medicine work. And so we feel very welcomed in and we're grateful for that. But also we know that there are a lot of people that work with this medicine, that a lot of different tribes around the world. To give kind of like a long-term vision, a lot of what we're doing is to bring support to protect the native lands and to protect the work that they do with the consciousness of the earth, to bring awareness of it. We're trying to get funds, people like to bring donations and different movies or series done on the different tribes out there that are working with the medicine and what that's like. It's something that's all done usually by the people who have taken the medicine and experienced it themselves because they understand the importance of it. Yeah. And so that's the energy behind this movement. Everyone's kind of sacrificing and receiving what they need, but, you know, putting in the effort to make something bigger.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, before we talk a bit more about that, I would love to ask you, for you, Sean, what's been some of your biggest insights? Because you've been, of course, doing a lot of your own work, your own healing. What's been some of the biggest revelations and insights that you've been experiencing in your own process?
Thank you. That was a really deep question. I would say just how much everything reflects and how holographic everything is. Everything is a mirror. And so as we go through our experiences, our relationships, but even within ourselves, we see that everything is fractals of our inner experience. And so I really like what your podcast is about, because really every single being inside of them has this energy they need to be aware of. And I like to think of masculine and feminine energy as like a push and a pull. And so I'm sure you talk a lot about this with the polarities of it all. Well, I know you do, but the concept of what really brought me a lot of awareness was just how much I need to balance that push and pull in every part of my being. And so as I got into this work, I had my own company in plant medicine and CBD. And then I was trying to merge that with medicine, with meditation, because I was an energy worker and doing meditation at the time. Met Rose, and we started creating this company together, merging all of our work, knowing just the patterns of how energy moves through the consciousness and seeing how that also is patterned through her work as well. Because it's just, you know, patterns of nature, of reality. That created a platform where I was able to really see that there was a structure to help people integrate this information that they get when they go on these journeys. And so this kind of pattern of consciousness moving through the nervous system that I'm talking about is how when you first experience something, it goes through your physical body. That input going through your physical body creates an emotional experience, or hormones going through the endocrine system. Those hormones are interpreted a certain way that create an ego dynamic once you experience it long enough and believe something subconscious about yourself. That ego dynamic creates an inner experience. And that inner experience becomes a spiritual experience because it's the way that we love or hold space for ourselves. So it's the boundaries that we hold for ourselves and holographically how we hold space for those around us. It manages or directs the connections that we make with those around us, or the holographic experiences that we're creating within our reality here, the heaven or the earth that we're choosing to, the heaven or the hell we're choosing to create, or whatever in between. Yeah. And so this like flow of energy starts in this physical experience that we have, like being aware of our physical body, the push and the pull that we receive within our physical realm of money and material things, or just like sports or working out, you know, very like physical body kind of stuff, into like the emotional things, like the hormones that, which are more dynamics that turn into relationships, the experiences of relationships. Those emotional relationships turn into more of like the ego dynamics of the structure of who we are. These things are really deep, and I'm condensing it as much as I can. Like what builds the structure of our identity is what you meant with the ego, right? Exactly. Because it's not the last bit of who we really are. Our individual identity, that's not where it stops, but it's how we perceive ourselves in the world. Well said. I love that. Thanks for adding and for saying all that, because this is a good point. The kind of big breakthrough for me was being able to explain this to people in a way where it bridges the physical experience with the spiritual. Because when you're using plant medicine, you know, you're really breaking that ego. You're breaking that barrier. That spot right after that ego is that fourth spot is the heart chakra. So these layers I'm talking about are actually the chakra centers. The root chakra is the physical, the sacral is the emotional, the solar is the mental, the ego, and the heart chakra is the spiritual place. It's the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. And so that's where we are able to hold states of consciousness like forgiveness and love and self-acceptance. And so that's where we're able to see that, yes, we go past the ego into these spiritual places like the throat chakra, the third eye, the crown chakra, and see the interconnectedness of things and how it roots back down, you know, into our physical life. It changes everything. It helps us evolve the way that we see our physical self, and then how we experience our emotional self every time this energy starts at the core and it goes back from the core up to the crown. All this information is I feel like it's a lot of information that people will be like, oh, that's out there. Or like, where did you get your facts? Or like, show me the data. And so when we were taking this medicine, I had friends where, I'd worked with or I was around as I was, trying to make this happen with the CBD company in different ways that just didn't see the bigger picture. Once I started working with ayahuasca and started working with Rose, it was really amazing because everything just started coming together. The people that saw the bigger picture stepped into our lives. We started working with them more and started investing our energy where it really felt like people were receiving us. As we got this app out, it was really about explaining the structure of these layers in a really simple, it is complex, but we're trying to simplify it and organize it so that people can focus on where they're finding their trauma. Is it in their physical experience, or they're finding emotional blockages, or are they having blockages in how they're experiencing their ego or the subconscious buildup up to what creates their ego? It basically organizes it so they can find where that trauma is, where that block is, and then hold space for it and learn how to hold space for it. And then they can have that tool. Yeah, it's really interesting. And what's great about it too is I don't have to say that I made it up. Like I didn't make up meditation. I didn't make up EFT tapping. These kinds of things just need to be organized in a way so that people can find it. So that when they're like, I'm really processing my relationships, they just keep on, when they find these patterns, they can even take like an assessment on the app so they can figure out where the blocks are, and they can figure out, that is what I need to do to work on my relationships, and find tools to help them on it. But it's about helping people get the tools that they need for themselves so they don't have to depend on other people. That way, when they're able to hold space for each layer of themselves, the physical, the emotional, the mental, they start stepping into this place of acceptance and this self-forgiveness and this love. And it makes it a lot easier to start experiencing things like spiritual awakenings, especially with plant medicine, because you're able to see your shadow self. You're able to step into acceptance over and over again, no matter where that block is, because you're familiar with how to hold space for it.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. It's definitely important to have something like that, and not just to throw people into, here, take this medicine, drink this cup, here you go, have a good ride. That makes it much more grounded and integrated.
I 100% agree. I love the shamans and what they do, and what they say is like, don't force anything. The medicine will do the work, and it does do the work. But a lot of times the pre-integration and the post-integration, people don't get that when they really need it. And so that's what we're trying to fill the gaps in for. The medicine's pure and it can help people, but also you need to come prepared for the medicine. And so there's a layer of it that matches your state of consciousness. And that's something that you can work with. That's something that you can raise. That's something that you can be present with. Really what we're talking about is just learning how to step into acceptance, accepting layers of ourselves that are holding us back from evolving. So.
Yeah, to also have self-compassion, right? Whilst you're going through it all, you're not beating yourself up whilst you have to heal this and this and this and this and that. And
100%.
yeah.
Not easy. That's the test. I think that's why it's in the center, the heart chakra, because it almost, it tests every single chakra that we have. Because in every single chakra or every single layer of our experience, we're going to have this push or this pull, which is like this creative experience and this receptive experience. And we have to be able to balance it. And the only way to balance it is to be present with ourselves and to forgive every single time that we get triggered within each layer, because everything's a mirror. So we're seeing ourselves every single time that we get triggered.
Yeah. The fastest way to diffuse a trigger is to process the shadow layer of it, which is the perception of yourself that you're rejecting or denying. When I learned how to start processing shadow traits about 4 years ago, I feel like that was when I actually started to be able to regulate my emotions for the first time and regulate my nervous system. Because before that, I was so aware and present with the emotions that would come through me in the present moment, or I was in a hyper numbed state. Like I was either like very, very aware and it was like overwhelming and very intense, where I'd be like really overwhelmed by a lot of people. And I kind of get easily triggered if I was like in a group setting or kind of putting myself out there and doing big things with my life. Like it was hard to regulate or process triggers until I learned how to get deeper into that deeper layer of how I'm perceiving myself and how I'm expressing myself. That's mirroring like a holograph with what I'm triggered by.
Yeah.
That's the core of where it was being processed.
Yes. Honestly, it's like what neutralizes it. It's what makes the really intense negative emotion first be validated and like fully spent time with and held and seen. And it also is an opportunity to give yourself permission to be human and also accept those behaviors or traits that you have subconsciously or throughout the last recent days been denying in the back of your mind. No, I'm not this way, or I'm not doing that, or this isn't happening in my life. Like just like a disconnect from like what's really happening or how you're expressing. And when there's a gap like that of awareness or connection to that information, there's a friction emotion there. Like that's where a source or target point is, or coordinates are for friction in our energy field and in our subconscious and our consciousness, because that's where we're holding negative emotion. Us as like a conduit of light and information. And so if there's friction and gaps in certain areas, then the information can't run clearly through. And so it's going to be going through a filter. You're going to be seeing what's happening, but you're also kind of just seeing it through this filter of the emotions and the thought patterns anchored there. And that's what creates a negative behavioral pattern, right? Yeah, the negative thought, negative emotion, feeling it. Yeah.
It's just basically the emotions. They're not per se like negative. It's just life force that wants to flow. But we got conditioned in a way, or we're scared of certain emotions to really feel them. So we suppress them. It's like the stagnation and this, what you just talked about, right? When we judge an emotion or are afraid of it, if there's judgment or fear, and we kind of stop the flow of life force, and then stuff gets stagnated. Life force doesn't flow anymore. Maybe even health issues show up and all of that stuff. Energy centers get blocked up and all of that. So I think like that's really one of the things that I learned through some experiences with ayahuasca and working with a mentor, was like really to develop that quality of equanimity. When you're in the midst of whatever intense trigger or trauma coming up, you really learn to stay in the center of it without trying to control it, like really being the objective observer rather than the subjective judger, right? So that's so powerful what can happen like in the moment when you're triggered, for regulating yourself, but also to really create healing, to hold space in that key moment. In the moment we get triggered, it feels horrible a lot of the time, but it's like a gift for us to use to liberate ourselves from that stuff that is being triggered, right? Like when we get to really hold the space.
Yes, absolutely. I love that point.
Thank you.
I feel that so much. Like that's something I've really learned on my journey too, with working with all these layers, all these different factors we're talking about, is that there's this greater empowerment we have when we just observe what's already there without needing it to be bad or good. I think that's important to differentiate negative energy from being bad. Like negative friction energy is more just kind of more of a matter of fact in the negative energy field of force. And of the denser energy where there's friction, and then
it's just like the frequency of that, you know, it's dense. I would call it dense, you know, like, but everyone has their terms.
It's like the vibration of it.
It's low vibrational.
It's and if it's denser, it's good to understand that, so that you can identify how it feels in your body when it's come up. When there's dense shame calibrates at 20 hertz, so it's heavy friction energy, but it's very dense, heavy. Where anger is 150 hertz, which is like a high frequency but still the negative energy field. So it's higher and it has more intense surges of energy that it sends through you, because it's propelling you into action to make a change. The purpose
getting
of
closer to courage, right? To
yes, it's like, come on, like there's something that's not right and I need to correct it. Anger is recognizing when there's been a violation, and underneath it's really sadness. It's a secondary emotion. It's never bad. It's just important to know what to do with it, to alchemize it, to redirect it. And with clear focus, you can create powerful things.
On this note, I'd really like to point out, because we were talking about acceptance earlier, and now you're talking about anger. And I think it's really important to point out that anger and sadness, processing those is what's necessary to be able to step into acceptance. That's what those emotions are for, because we're starting to see the layers of the shadow self, the parts of ourselves that are manifesting in our reality that are making us uncomfortable. So a lot of times the opposite side of that dynamic creates anger, or if we're able to be present with it long enough, sadness. And so being able to step in it without stepping into pride is what brings us into acceptance.
If we're able to hold space for it.
And anger can a lot of the times be like a cover-up for what's actually going on. You put anger on top, especially for us men, you know, like anger seems to be the only emotion that's socially acceptable to express. You're sad, you feel fear or whatever. You know, man doesn't feel that. It's like still this stigma. I see also with the men I work, like there's a lot of big layer of anger, but if I do release work with them on anger, or like some somatic practices or primal screaming or whatever, it's like a lot of the times also with myself, there's like tears coming up or stuff underneath that.
I love that you point out that like culturally across the world, there's this judgment and like stereotype or like expectation of men to not show these other emotions. So apathy, numbness, and anger are often dominating, and how important it is to move that energy physically with like screaming, like vibration. Your voice or vocal cords are vibration. So when you're able to really move it that way, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And there's all different things you can do.
Ecstatic dancing.
I want to see that ecstatic anger dance. That might look like
the hot rod dance.
So that's what they're doing on heavy metal concerts, right? So they're having the ecstatic anger dance.
Yes, every genre has its place for different emotions.
Yeah.
But with anger, a lot of times there's a lot of guilt. And I think that there's a lot of people that carry around subconscious guilt. They don't feel like they're doing enough. Like the difference between guilt and shame is like shame is like I'm inherently wrong or broken. But guilt's like I've done something wrong. And I think a lot of people don't feel like they're doing enough, or they feel like they're doing life wrong and things wrong. And so there's this like residual chaotic cycle of like guilt and frustration, which turns into like resentment and suppressed anger. And I think a lot of people are living in a state of internal friction and stress because they're trying to control it, and they don't even know how to like get to the root of it. So I really want to point this out, that like if you are carrying a lot of anger and friction and this is happening for you, look at what you might be feeling guilty about and what like in your life you might want to see change. Because if you're feeling some frustration and like you're maybe not doing it right, there may be some things that you deep down know and want to shift in your life that you know need to shift. And if you can identify that and bring clarity to what those emotions are trying to tell you, then they can alchemize and be felt and held and released, because you're not judging them. You're just being present with what they're communicating to you. Like, oh, I felt guilt about this when I did this. And you can go really deep into inner child stuff. And if you want to do that, like, let's have a session. But like, also you can do this with just frequency music. Just observe like these different emotions and draw those lines and dots together and bring some clarity to it. And that itself is very freeing.
This was just part 1 of this interview. Make sure to follow the podcast so you get notified once part 2 comes out. If you're curious to check out their new app or their retreats, you can find the links below in the show notes. And if you're a man that's stuck between toxic and weak masculinity or needs support in his relationship or sexuality, click the link now in the show notes to learn more about the chance to have a free clarity call with me.